Tonight, foreign workers. Some businesses struggle to hire locally. Fort St. John City Council rejects the PRD's attempt to ease leisure pool taxes. And tanker ban. BC's Premier continues his opposition to a new pipeline from Alberta. Well, good evening and thank you for joining us. We begin tonight with the ongoing issue around temporary foreign workers. Some businesses across the Peace region say they're struggling to hire locally, so they rely on international workers to help fill the labor gap. But, as Noah Abel reports, that too is becoming more difficult.
When most people think of foreign workers in Canada, they picture jobs in agriculture, construction, or food services. But many other sectors have to rely on international labor. The assistant manager of the Hair-Bin in Fort St. John says foreign workers are key to the success of the business.
We've been trying to hire locally. That's what we try and do all the time, but we cannot get local skilled tradespeople. So this is why we've had to look at other avenues and hire foreign workers.
Zarbuck says a lot of work goes into bringing foreign workers to Northeast BC. While local businesses have to invest in training newcomers, those newcomers have to adapt to a completely different country, hoping for a better life in Canada. Raj Singh came from India over 4 years ago, and he's now a barber at the Hair-Bin. He comes to work every morning with one goal in mind, becoming a permanent resident.
Everybody has dreams, right? Nobody wants to leave their home. Everybody wants to be a part of a good community where your skills can get the appreciation, right?
Now that these workers are here and trained, Zarbuck is worried they won't be able to stay in Canada.
We have individuals here with work permits that are expiring next year and no sign of them getting approved for their PR.
Zarbuck says the Rural Community Immigration Pilot Program was put in place by Ottawa to facilitate the path towards permanent residency. This year, the federal government has only allocated 80 application spots for Northeast BC. 40 of those are reserved for the sales and service sector, which includes hair salons. Zarbuck says it's not enough because around 500 local businesses have applied to recommend their workers to be accepted to the program. As for Singh, it would take 227 days for him to receive a work permit extension if he needed one today. Without the extension, he could be sent back to India. Fort St. John City Councillor Trevor Bolin says losing foreign workers means losing important members of the community.
You've got folks that have lived in the community for 4 or 5 or 6 years. They have family, they have kids. Their kids are in our local schools, and all of a sudden they're in a wait period of 8 months to 12 months, and then to get denied, it's pretty devastating.
A new report from Ottawa says after revised rules kicked in last year, it became harder to get a temporary foreign worker permit. As a result, the number of applications to the program fell by half. The Hair-Bin is about to celebrate 40 years in business, but finding skilled workers has been a challenge since the start. Amber says she hopes to spark a conversation about what she calls an unfair system for foreign workers. Noah Abel, CJDC-TV News, Fort St. John.
The Fort St. John City Council has rejected the Peace River Regional District's request to exempt more residential properties from paying taxes towards the North Peace Leisure Pool. The PRD had requested to add more properties in Area B to the exemption list because they were too far away to use the pool regularly. Well, City Council voting unanimously to reject that idea. The assessed value of property on the PRD exemption list has now grown to over $440 million across 848 properties. That's 62 more properties added to the list in the last 2 years. The city says loss in tax revenue as a result will just get passed on to other taxpayers. Well, coastal First Nations and BC's Premier have signed a declaration calling on the federal government to maintain an oil tanker ban off BC's north coast. The ban is the reason why the Northern Gateway pipeline from Alberta through the Peace region to the coast was scrapped back in 2016. Today, David Eby says an oil spill in the area would destroy billions of dollars in economic activity along the coast with no technology available to clean it up. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has been calling for the tanker ban to be repealed as part of her government's proposal to build an oil pipeline to the BC coast.
In my opinion, a partisan issue. Conservative leaders like Brian Mulroney, Ronald Reagan, they recognized that some places were too precious to put at risk, and that includes our North Coast.
In a statement, the Office for Alberta's Premier says the feds have control over interprovincial trade, so a single premier cannot block the export of Alberta's most valuable asset. Librarians across British Columbia are sounding the alarm over the need for more funding from the province to stay afloat. As CTV's Yasmin Gandam reports, the financial challenges are coming from a recent rise in people borrowing e-books.
Digital versions of books like these have been at libraries for more than 15 years, but demand has never been higher.
We saw digital circulation actually outpace physical circulation for the first time.
That increased 16% from 2023 to 2024, according to VPL, with physical copies dropping just under 4% for the same period.
Clearly it's popular, it's appealing, but the challenge with digital is it costs a lot more than print.
The cost double or more than that of print ones because of licensing agreements with publishers. Libraries also pay for book access, either by a set time limit or by the number of downloads.
It really is difficult for us to build the kind of broad and deep collections we would like because of the cost.
Now the BC Library Association is advocating for new government policies on the issue, as libraries are spending a significant portion of their budgets on digital content.
We're starting to reach out to different levels of government to talk about what legislative solutions there might be, because at the end of the day, this is public service. This is public money.
More than 90% of library funding comes from local governments, and librarians are worried without more money, they can't keep up with the demand.
Enough funding to continue to support communities in their times of need, and to make sure they have what they need to succeed.
In September, the Union of BC Municipalities passed a resolution calling on the province to increase library funding from $14 million to $30 million.
At the end of the convention, when Premier Eby was asked to speak about it, he acknowledged that libraries are important, but said that there is no new provincial funding coming.
The province acknowledges the pressures libraries face and tells CTV News that it provided a $45 million enhancement grant 2 years ago. But with added challenges and costs, that one-time funding is quickly running out.
Everyone keeps saying that libraries are valued, but we really need someone to start paying for them.
Yasmin Gandam, CTV News, Vancouver.
Well, another poultry farm in the Fraser Valley has been infected with the avian flu. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency has confirmed the presence of the virus at a commercial farm in Langley. The agency says nearly 11.5 million birds have been affected in British Columbia between 2022 and October of this year. However, the CFAI says there's no evidence to suggest that eating cooked poultry or eggs could transmit the virus to humans. There have been 17 outbreaks of the virus in British Columbia in the last 3.5 weeks. And the fate of the flock of ostriches in southeast BC could become clearer tomorrow. The Supreme Court of Canada will determine whether to hear a last-ditch appeal against the ordered cull of the animals. Among the leave applicants that will be ruled on is Universal Ostrich Farm's challenge of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency's order to cull the flock. It comes after avian flu outbreak that was detected late last year. If the court decides not to hear the case and lifts the stay on the cull, there will be no legal impediment to the killing of the hundreds of birds on the Edgewood farm. However, if leave to appeal is granted, a final decision on the fate of the flock would then come after a hearing at the High Court. The Prime Minister has begun selling his budget, and it seems everyone is analyzing what it means to them. But there was another big story on Parliament Hill yesterday, a Conservative member of Parliament crossing the floor to join the Liberals. Mike Lecouture has the details.
A clearly content Chris d'Entremont welcomed by a lively Liberal caucus. The Nova Scotia MP says his decision to cross over came down to serving his constituents and issues with Pierre Poilievre.
Over the last number of months, I wasn't feeling that I was aligned with the ideals of what the Leader of the Opposition had been talking about.
I'm honored.
The newest Liberal accompanied the Prime Minister to his post-budget press conference, where Mark Carney had this message for all parliamentarians.
Wherever they're sitting in the House, this is a time where we need to act as a country, be as unified as possible.
d'Entremont's former caucus colleagues questioned his move, given his record.
6 months ago, he ran on an affordability agenda. He ran to lower deficits. He ran on a stronger economy, a pro-growth agenda, and he's turned his back on that.
But the former Conservative says others in that caucus are also mulling over a move.
I would suggest that there probably are those that are in the same boat, but I will let them tell their stories if that time comes.
Attempting to quell recent rumors that she is crossing the floor, Conservative Dominique Vienne released a video reaffirming her commitment to the party. But if others do go, some pollsters predict problems for Pierre Poilievre.
It is a rare thing for a member of parliament to cross the floor, especially one in an environment as polarized as Canada is today. And I think that suggests it would be a signal that Mr. Poilievre has a real challenge in keeping the party together.
The Liberals wouldn't say if they're actively recruiting other MPs to join the government caucus, but when asked about it, Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand said, the more the merrier. Mike Lecouteur, CTV News, Ottawa.
And one day after the finance minister unveiled the Liberals' budget, opinions on whether it's good for Canadians are mixed. CTV's Abigail Beeman has more on Ottawa's plan for the long-term economic growth.
Morning. How are you?
At an Ottawa light rail yard the morning after the budget, the Prime Minister highlighted its $51 billion Build Communities Strong local infrastructure fund.
Canada's strength wasn't built in the halls of Parliament. It was built in our communities.
An attempt to make a high-level budget he calls generational, relevant for average Canadians. As many economists say, while positive, there were not many takeaways to impact daily life.
The government is moving in the right direction, but seem hesitant to go all in on this. When we look at the amount of support that was provided to the economy is less than we were expecting. We looked at the depth of the cuts. It was less than we were expecting.
Randall Bartlett points to previously announced tax cuts and a new promise to lower bank fees as impactful, but a budget with a tricky big picture narrative.
The tough thing that I think we'll see is that a lot of this is going to help kind of prevent Canada from being in a worse situation because of the trade war with the U.S.
They're worried about how they're going to pay for their grocery bills. They're worried about how they're going to afford tuition. They're worried if they don't have a doctor. And this budget doesn't do anything for them.
The big bet that Mark Carney's making in this budget is on the patience of Canadians.
Scott Reid calls it a 30,000-foot budget, with reorienting our economy and restructuring business investment taking as long as a decade to have tangible impacts.
They may be absolutely necessary, but they are not urgent. And Canadians tend to think, worry, and vote on the basis of urgency.
Reid says the government needs to focus now on showing Canadians how the budget could help them on an ongoing basis, not just on Budget Day. The government tells CTV News today's train depot announcement was just the start of a cross-country tour to promote the budget. Abigail Beeman, CTV News, Ottawa.
Well, stateside now, where the U.S. Supreme Court is weighing one of the most economically significant cases in decades. It has huge implications for Canada. At issue, whether President Donald Trump's sweeping emergency tariffs are legal. CTV's Joy Melbon reports.
The Handmaid's Tale protesters are back, demonstrating against Donald Trump's tariffs and use of presidential power. The president has slapped tariffs on more than 90 nations, including Canada, by declaring a national economic emergency. The justices heard arguments whether Trump's use of the 1977 law without congressional approval is even legal.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day.
It's the president's signature tool to strike new trade deals, claiming it addresses trade deficits and protects manufacturing.
President Trump has negotiated agreements worth trillions of dollars with major trading partners. Unwinding those agreements, he warns, would expose us to ruthless trade retaliation.
It's a congressional power, not a presidential power to tax. And you want to say tariffs are not taxes, but that's exactly what they are.
Even some conservative justices seemed skeptical.
My question is, has there ever been another instance in which a statute has used that language to confer the power?
Only President Trump has. Several states and small businesses challenged his tariffs, and lower courts agreed he's overstepped his authority.
They're gloating all over all the billions of dollars that they're collecting. They think it's great. What they don't say is they're collecting it from American businesses.
Trump's tariffs have cost Canada billions of dollars in lost business, straining relations with the U.S., and with trade talks stalled over an Ontario anti-tariff ad.
Such trade barriers hurt every American worker.
This is like somebody's driving the train. We're kind of in the back cars, and we don't control its speed, and we don't control its destination.
President Trump posted this case as life or death for America with his most significant economic policy at stake. The court's expected to rule swiftly within weeks or months. Joy Malvin, CTV News, Washington.
And Democrats scored major wins in elections yesterday, with one of the biggest in New York City, where Zohran Mamdani has been elected mayor. This in spite of repeated attempts by President Trump to swing the vote against him.
So Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up.
Mamdani, a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, took direct aim at the president during his acceptance speech. Democrats also swept the governor's races in New Jersey and Virginia. Those contests were widely viewed as the first test for Trump since he returned to power 9 months ago. One of the other key victories came in California. That's where voters approved a plan to redraw congressional districts. The plan is expected to benefit Democrats, offsetting a similar move to benefit Republicans in Texas. And new disturbing images have emerged as investigators examine the deadly crash of a UPS plane in Kentucky last night. The explosive crash happened as the aircraft was taking off from Muhammad Ali International Airport in Louisville. Multiple camera angles capturing the massive fireball, along with plane engulfed in flames streaking across the ground. Kentucky's governor says at least 9 people have been killed, including 3 crew members. The number of victims is expected to rise. All right, please do stay tuned. Noah will be right back after the break with weather.